your life.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to another very engaging and interesting episode of Beyond Code, where the larger motive of these podcasts is to delve deep into the minds and the lives of tech leaders who have been working in this tech industry for so long that they're inspiring a lot of young people. And our core motive of this podcast is to bring a little bit inspiration from their life and pass it on to you guys, right? And talking about inspiration, we have with us in today's panel Upesh Jindal, who's a director of engineering at Zinier, and he has over 20 years of experience in tech industry, and he has been working across domains, across specific sectors, right from tech, telecom, pharma, finance, and various verticals. And that's why our theme of today's podcast is how and why a diverse exposure is a must in today's industry for all the engineers, right? And Upesh loves talking the talk, and leading by example is the way to go for Upesh. And obviously, this has helped him forge long-term relationships with all the stakeholders that he has worked along in his journey of 20 years. And our job today is to just kind of dwell deep into Upesh's life and understand what it takes to be a good leader. First of all, Upesh, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I understand that we try to do this a couple of times, but obviously your schedule was busy. But fantastic! Thank you so much for being with us today on this podcast on the theme of diversification. Any
Uh,
opening comments, Upesh, please?
yeah, thanks, Mitesh and Rekro, for having me here. Like I said earlier in our earlier conversations,
Yeah.
I generally stay away from seminars, but it's actually heartwarming for me to talk to youngsters and uh, try to help them guide into their future and into their career, as in what is actually required in the industry, so they can equip themselves with what they're up to, what they're looking up to in the market. So
Mm.
thank you very much for having me.
Pleasure is completely ours, Upesh. I think the larger goal, obviously, as you mentioned, is to, the audience of us who's listening today, take some leaf out of your book, and your 20 years of experience can be, obviously, it can't be shortened into these 60 minutes, but at least if we can, give some inspiration to any of these folks, it will be absolutely amazing for us, Upesh.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So every conversation that I start with our tech leaders, Upesh. So I generally start with having them describe little bit about their initial days, is like childhood, early education, because I understand that this plays a huge impact in how a person's a career is kind of framed in the initial days, right? And obviously, you have spent in the industry, you have spent so many years talking to a lot of these people, right? And there is obviously a mind of a part of your early childhood life that has created a huge impact in this career of yours, right? Just want to understand from you that uh, can you just little bit describe about your childhood and where this tech love for tech comes in, because that's gonna be a key role throughout your career post that, right? So just want to begin our conversation by touching few points on your childhood and how this love of tech came from.
Sure, Amitesh. So, see, I come from a very, very small town in Punjab. I was born and brought up there. It's named Sunam. I guess most of us wouldn't even know where it exists. And I have been a very, very naughty and outdoors kid to start with, primarily just playing with friends, all old school sports like, kite flying, cricket or marbles, that kind of stuff. We didn't have TV or digital devices at the time. That was like late 80s and early 90s. Um, and of course, I studied in local schools as well. No big chains we had available, and the resources that we had available were not that good to, go to um, larger chains like, let's say, the DPSs of the world at that time. Um, and making a lot of friends at school and the neighborhood. So pretty much entire day post school was spent on the street playing with them, and then creating connections and whatnot. without understanding what we are going to go after, let's say, 10th or 12th. Academically, I think I did decent enough, wherein, if we take the percentages or the marks as the yardstick, I would be in, let's say, top three, top four people in the school. But that's one of the yardsticks. And see, the life that I'm living today, of course, the credit to this life goes to my parents as well as to my teachers you know, who played such a vital role in shaping up this life, and especially to the principal of our school, who I remember. I mean, I have studied up to 10th in a Hindi medium school, and he was the one who used to take special English lessons for us. And even in winters, Punjab winters, we used to start our school at 7:30, whereas regular classes would start at 9 a.m. And then if I look at my life in hindsight, if I look at my childhood, I think it was pretty balanced in the sense that outside activity, as well as academically, performing in the school. I think it's a pretty balanced one. One thing that I miss, which I couldn't do in school, was a lot of reading. That is something that I miss, and probably that's maybe just it maybe just a lack of exposure at that level when we compare it to larger cities, tier two, tier three city, tier one cities. The love for technology, it came. We I remember we on and at that time we did not have cable TV that popular in the small towns. So all we had was Doordarshan. And I remember in the morning at about 7:30, 7:45-ish, there used to be a cartoon played by Doordarshan, on which, there was a rocket, and somebody was sitting there pressing buttons on the rocket and then saying, okay, there's a guy who is, doing a space travel kind of stuff. So that was like, it kind of kindled my interest into computers, but still I had never seen a physical computer in my life until the very first day of my college. I remember struggling to find the power button to turn it on, and trying to, and I was fearing that I might just ruin something.
Mm.
And a friend of mine actually found the button, and he actually turned it on. And the moment I saw the screen, I was like, boss, this is the thing that I want to do. And from that point onwards, anyways, we had quite a good set of teachers, professors, who actually inculcated this interest in the programming, as well as, of course, in the larger ecosystem as well.
Amazing. I think you just reminded me of the Ramayana and Mahabharata days where in a society there used to be one television set, and
Exactly.
in at 8 9 in the morning, when the weekly affair came of Ramayana and Mahabharata, everyone used to throng to that place, and there used to be and that's the kind of I'll say privilege or lack of privilege we have seen that now. When we see tech stuff, impacting huge lives, right?
Yeah.
We have seen the other side as well, right? What was the life when tech was not there, right? So there is so much of reverence that comes out of it, right? And absolutely, completely agree with you when you said you were struggling to find out the power button. I'll tell you my story, Upesh, where when the first computer came into to our school, and I think I was in ninth standard or 10th standard, around that. uh, we used to remove our shoes and everything, and then go into the lab, because we think that a small dust can ruin the entire setup, right?
Yep.
So that kind of reverence we had for technology. And obviously, for the audience who is listening to us right now, it becomes very important to uh, pay a lot of reverence to whatever technology you have right now, in terms of, yes, respect what you have right now, and certainly make the best use of all the technologies that you have, right? So that's amazing story, Upesh. I think it reminded me of my old days as well. Funny. Anyways, I think let's kind of move a little bit further, because you mentioned that you are living in your in a small town, and even in your early career, Rupesh, I think when you were into your early careers of tech and all, you still stayed in Chandigarh, right? You did not take a conscious call of moving to tech hubs, the other tech hubs like Delhi or maybe Bangalore or Mumbai, right? Any particular reason for that, or it was a very a natural decision for you to kind of not go there and learn from your own hometown?
See, I graduated in 2002,
Hmm.
which was right in the middle of economic crisis. I mean,
Right.
couple
Yep.
of reasons, dot-com bubble burst, and then following that, 9/11 happened. Pretty much all the job offers got revoked from the college, and we had to like literally get out of the college and then find a job. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, last semester, like a lot of colleges have, is that they have the industrial training, and after that, you
Hmm.
are on your own. Uh, for me to land my first job, it took 1 year because of all the economic constraints and whatnot. I mean, everybody was looking for experienced people, and of course, we had zero experience. During that 1 year, I might have taken at least, I guess, 50 interviews. And pretty much everyone was like, you are not up to the mark. You don't know this language. You don't know that language. Even if you clear the interview, then they would say, okay, we have now shifted to XYZ language. So, the struggle was real. And then somehow I did not have a very, very strong preference for any city. The idea was to get started. The
Hmm.
idea was to get started with something and learn as much as I could in the early years. And an opportunity just came. A friend of mine put my referral into my first company, and I started working there. And I still carry with me what I learned there. Although it was a very, very short stint, but I remember going to work at 8 in the morning and then coming back home 4 a.m. next day and then going back again at 8. But the idea here was to, work as much as possible at that time, create a lot of breadth of technical issues, technical understanding. And then from there that point onwards just move forward. No conscious call in terms of like moving to a big city.
Hmm.
I interviewed in Delhi also a lot of times. I remember traveling to Delhi for interviews, and then roaming around the roads of Lajpat Nagar, where at the time companies would be set up in a small one room setup in the basement, and they had big clients, by the way. Nokia's, Motorola's of the world were the clients of these small companies. But yeah, I had no strong preference for a city. Chandigarh, because I had lived there for quite some time, 6 7 years. A lot of friends were there from Chandigarh, so that's something that worked naturally for me.
Right.
And then I met my spouse also there, so
Amazing.
that also worked out pretty well.
Fantastic. I think a big learning I think that we can draw from this experience of yours is to get started, right? And I see a lot of conversations Upesh, these days is on remote versus in office culture, right? Do you have remote? A lot of questions are coming in, but do you have remote or do you have in office, right? Uh, so the only thing that we are trying to do here is to, don't worry about what setup these guys are having, right? At least get started with your career, because obviously when you are uh, early stages of a career, these things might, it does not play a big role, right? It's more of a learning how you get, and certainly well pointed out when you say there is no substitute of hard work, and obviously it does not matter where you are working from, right? It's
Yeah.
just about showing up there, working hard, and making sure that your aspiration of reaching somewhere in the life, it's getting sustained at that particular point of time.
Exactly. I mean, I remember when I was right in college, I had very strong preference for a certain language that I
Hmm.
want to work in this language only. But fortunately or unfortunately, I did not get a chance to work on that until I joined, larger organization later on, about 3 4 years down the line. But the idea was when I started with HFCL, that's my first job. The idea was to just do anything that comes my way, just get the work done. It's not about just acquiring the technical skills that are required to get that job done. It's about getting anything done. I mean, during this process you come across sales people, you come across marketing people, you come across your boss, you come across operations. It gives you a good perspective about not just learning technology but being a well-rounded person.
Absolutely.
That's I think that's something that I carry with me even today. I still remember those days when anybody would come with a request saying, it was an internal development center, and anybody would come and saying, Upesh, this is something that we need to do. Can we do something about it? I said, okay, fine, let's do this. The idea is to make somebody's life easier. We are not building software for, for the resume. We are building software for a user, and that's something that we should carry with ourselves right from the early ages.
Excellent. I think a beautiful segue you have given, Upesh, for our listeners right now, that while working with smaller firms, right, uh, there is the cohort is so small that you talk to every bit, right? You talk to salespeople, you talk to ops guys, you talk to marketing guys, and suddenly from there on, when you kind of move to a firm like Amdocs, who is obviously in any stage of imagination, it's a bigger firm compared to where you're working, right? So it's a complete 360-degree, right? It changes your life, it changes your perspective, it changes how you have seen your just your work environment, right? So how does it impacted you, Upesh, when you obviously move from a so-called smaller firm to a firm like Amdocs, and what are your learnings that you have drawn, and maybe you can share some of your insights into that for our audience, Upesh.
Sure. So yeah, as I said, from Chandigarh, in about 3 or 4 years, I moved to Pune to work with Amdocs, and uh, couple of things that changed drastically there. One was Amdocs was at the time CMM level 3, which was more mature in terms of processes, and second was the scale at which we had to work.
Right.
I mean, starting my career with a very small setup, catering to, let's say, just 100,000 or maybe 300,000 users, uh, going to millions of users, and that drives a lot of responsibility in terms of what accuracy levels, what latency, if we talk, purely in terms of technical jargon, what kind of latency we are looking at, and then how you make the how do you even make a little change to the system.
Mhm.
But bigger than that is just the technical aspects. But bigger than that, what I did uh, in those 12 years at Amdocs, um, the biggest aspect of that was a lot of great people actually came into our life. And some of them I can still, call them lifelong friends, and would certainly would like to, live my old age with them. And of course, some of them are in US. We are here in India, but the idea is that we are still connected with all of them. And that's one thing that I would tell anyone who is working at a larger setup, or maybe even at a smaller setup. uh, Make good relationships right from the beginning, because these are the relationships which actually go long way. Even if you have left the company, these relationships go long way. And second thing that happened with Amdocs, that I think is in the DNA of the company, which is, of course, it comes from the people. I saw close to about 40 releases, 40 production releases in those 12 years. Not a single one of them was delayed by even a one day. And that is something ingrained in my mind even today. And I talk to my team, guys, meet your commitments. If you have made a commitment, make sure that you meet that commitment, because it's not just a software release that you're talking about. It's a statement about you, right? Make it personal and make it so that, even if it's one day delay, you should feel embarrassed, or you should feel the hit. You should feel the burn. And that is the brand image you should create for yourself, that, if in your next venture, in your next project, in your next team, somebody might say, or everybody in the team would say, if this guy is given work, it will get done in time. That is what I learned from Amdocs. Uh, Being a larger setup, of course, working in processes and whatnot, but working with a talented set of engineers, and of course, bringing or keeping this DNA forever in my life.
Amazing. I think just to kind of summarize for our audience here, uh, and I have noticed a theme in your life, right? As you vividly mentioned your childhood friends, how you spend a lot of your early days with them, and your memories are always surrounded by people, right? Not what you have actually delivered, right? It's about what impact you have created with them. And I think I'll just recite a quote of one of our college professors, that your network is your net worth, right? So that's what, uh, because it will, people will impact your life at every stage in your career, personal career, everywhere, right? So make sure that you choose the right set of people, right? And obviously, one theme again, you have, and gave you an introduction as well, where you live, lead by, lead the example, right? You walk the talk when you have said something, that this is what we are supposed to do. And obviously, your brand will come out very naturally when you are committed to certain things. Amazing. Thank you so much, Upesh, for sharing those amazing insights. Let's move forward, and let's try to get little bit more, more aggressive, and just start with a quick rapid fire do, because this is one, interesting bit that I like when, I interact with tech leaders, because they have their biases in terms of what they want to do and not. So let's just get into a small segment of rapid fire with you. Uh, I know the answer of this, but I'm still gonna ask. Uh, Meeting on a video call or in-person meeting?
In person.
Uh, Normal tech skills versus soft skills.
Soft skills.
Uh, you have worked in a lot of industry, medical industry, or online marketplace.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one. Medical industry, I would choose.
Right. A last one, Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk, your preferences of entrepreneur.
That is Elon Musk. By any
And why is that?
See, because that is the fundamental research that he's putting up there.
Right,
A
right.
lot of things are happening at very, very
Completely.
fundamental level. That's the reason.
No, exactly. I think he, lot of he's getting a lot of flack on being so you know kind of a maniac, right? But he is so invested in those ideas, right? Because these are very rudimentary in nature, right? They are shaking the entire base of what our existence looks like, right? And hence, to take that leap of faith and that risk, it requires a huge heart and huge conviction. So obviously, if you ask me also, I think Elon Musk he's a once in a age entrepreneur, where he's taking such huge risk, right?
Right.
And he is kind of, improving lives, right, of all
Exactly.
the people who are working around it, right? And yeah, obviously talking about improving lives, your stint at Soroco was also indeed, it was full of improvement, not only for you but also for people around you, because now at this point of time you have become a sort of leader, and you are managing teams, right? A very important aspect of being a manager is to impart, or let other people understand how to improve their productivity, right? Be it any productivity, right? In
Right.
terms of, because you mentioned when you are committed to something, you have to deliver that, right? And to deliver that commitment, you have to be absolutely efficient and productive at your own work, right? So what are your thoughts when we say, what can be the biggest barrier, that is yet to be solved in our industry when we talk about low employee productivity? What are those little things that makes people non-productive in our environment, which if you can throw some light on that,
Sure,
please?
sure, absolutely. So see, with Soroco, primarily what Soroco does is it does the business process automation as well as task or process mining. If you think
Hmm.
about, competitors like UiPath or Automation Anywhere or Celonis.
Right.
When we talk about productivity, or lack of efficiency, there are many reasons behind it. It's a big field by itself. But inherently, inefficiencies in the process, that's one thing. Sometimes the processes are just built for, maybe they are legacy processes, but I would leave that aspect of inefficiencies aside.
Mm-hmm.
uh, about people themselves or about the cultural inefficiencies, I believe there are a couple of things that hamper us from being absolutely efficient. And one of them is simply just, the culture of follow up that we have today, at least in my view. What I've seen here, at least in India, is, and I'm not generalizing over 100% population, but majority is what I've seen is that, you assign something to somebody, and you keep on following up. What is the update? What is happening? This and that. Now imagine that you have 20 people reporting into you and you have assigned work to all of them, and this one person is following up with all 20. Now it creates two problems. One is perception in my mind is that work is not getting done. And secondly, your attitude as a team member is that, until he follows up, I will not give updates, even if the work is done.
mm,
Right. So that is one level of one reason why we have inefficiencies in the system or in the productivity. And in my experience, the solution to this lies in the next problem that we have with inefficiencies, and that is the lack of ownership.
mm,
When, I remember in my college days or towards the last days of college, when we were interacting with a lot of people in the industry, people used to say, okay, this is my work, this is my boundary. Beyond that, I'm done. My work is done, it's your baby now, take care of it. That's the kind of conversation that happens many a times. But that's a problematic conversation. The reason why, because you lack ownership of your work then. And ownership does not just, in my view, it doesn't end with the assignment that you're given. The ownership ends when what you are working on as a unit is shipped out and is given to the customer or to the user in their hands. Because as an individual, if I have done my bit, this is going to be useless if the entire feature is not shipped out. So whatever you might have done your work in, let's say, 4 hours, but the other person or the other team members are struggling, and when they needed your support, you were not there. That is a lack of ownership. So in my view, and that's exactly what I talk to my team members as well. Don't say that my job is done or my work is done. It's
mm.
done when the entire thing is done. And that is the solution to bringing, getting out this or fixing this culture of follow up, wherein if my thing is done, I can just simply tell the team members, guys, I have checked in my code, right? And if you need me, I'm there. That is the that is the level of ownership that I think will solve this problem. And I think these are the hurdles in today's workforce, the mindset in the mindset
Mm,
of the
mm,
current workforce, that I believe if we fix, we should achieve even better levels of productivity. We all know that a lot of Western countries are coming to India for tech talent and whatnot,
mm, mm.
right? But still, a lot of them complain we are not getting good deliveries out, we are not getting timely deliveries out. And it doesn't just apply to services, it applies to the product-based companies as well. So I think it's a general problem, which two-pronged problem, culture of follow-up, wherein individual team members should be giving the updates rather than the team lead or the managers asking for updates.
Mm.
That creates a lot of pressure, and also the sense of ownership that needs to be built.
Right. I would like you to stay with the thought of cultures, right? Because obviously, Upesh, you have spent a lot of time in US, right? And obviously India, in out, right? So what? First question is, what are the changes that you see in terms of, obviously, one change, one you have right now addressed, that the level, the quality that we used to, what is expected out of our delivery is not that great, right? And have you seen any shift in that sense of manner, that there is a change in the way we are working? Because you have seen both the side now. You have seen US, you have seen India, and do you see the change happening in India right now, or it is there is still a huge difference in the way Western countries work or way we work, Upesh?
See, where 20 years back, a lot of innovation was happening in the US, and it still does. I mean, there's no denying factor there. Silicon Valley is there, and now I think Texas, Austin is the place where a lot of innovation is happening. Um, but right now, a lot of work is getting done in India as well. And
Mm,
when we talk about, some of the very, very successful products here, UPI is one of them, right?
yeah.
Zerodha, that is another example that we have, and then phone pay and whatnot. A lot of products, Swiggy's of the world or Zomato's of the world, and many of them are built for Indian population at scale, no doubts about it. And that's where previously what I said about culture is, it sounds like generalizing over the entire population. It's not. Otherwise, these products wouldn't have been out,
Absolutely.
right? But the way the difference in both the cultures, in my belief, is the US works in a sense that you delegate and trust. You
Mm,
give the work and trust that it'll get done. Nobody will follow up. They might just expect that once the work is done, I will get notified,
mm,
which is not how work gets done in India. We don't delegate and trust. We delegate and we follow up. So that is a dimension that needs to get changed. But of course, considering the kind of startup ecosystem that India has built, I mean, we are, I think, at number three right now in the world,
yes.
and we are of course building it for global ecosystem. Certainly, things are changing. People, and especially the young engineers, are noticing that what is required. It's not just technology. It's not just your domain expertise, but it's your overall experience or your overall attitude towards delivering value. That is, of course, changing. It's not an overnight change. Of course, it'll take time,
Yeah.
but it is there. Yep.
Yeah, I think the entire ecosystem has to be like that, right? Because we are traditionally, even in technology, also we are traditionally a service based, DNA, right? And now we are seeing that shift coming from, entirely service based to first it was productization of service, right? Now it's completely, a product driven ecosystem, right? And hence
Exactly.
I think it's just inevitable, right? That shift will be there, and it is in my opinion it's just around the corner, right? And the scale which we have, I don't think so it will take much time, right? And obviously I think talking about ecosystem, right? At Fable Care also I think you were again building an amazing ecosystem around healthcare, right? And so just want to kind of probe in, because obviously this is one domain, we are talking about multiple domains right now, from payments to to tech, general tech. Now we are trying to understand what healthcare domain is, right? So Upesh, so is the healthcare ecosystem already equipped with the desired tech we have? Because I feel uh, we are at a national level we are improving, but still we are not at that level, or we haven't found the UPI of health right yet. So what are your opinion on where we are on the maybe the hype cycle of healthcare, especially from a tech point of view?
See, yeah, I'm a very very small fish. I mean,
Mm,
I would say non-existent fish in the ocean of health tech. It's a vast field, and of course, there's a lot of companies. Fable is also one of them.
yeah.
But based on my limited understanding, I really believe that there's a couple of aspects for which health tech needs to either work on or improve on. One is that build the health tech for the middle India. And I'm actually picking this phrase from T.N. Hari's book. I think it was mentioned in Winning Middle India,
Mm,
that tier one India is rich on cash and poor on time, whereas middle India is rich on time and poor on cash.
amazing.
So question is what you are building for. If you're building it for metros, then your promises of 10 minutes delivery, they will not work for the smaller India. Then the requirements are totally different. The delightful factor is totally different. And on the other hand, of course, initiatives from government like the Ayushman Bharat,
Mm,
that is an initiative to bring, I guess, similar status as we have in UPI. I think that, of course, needs to be adopted, and I believe there are adoptions going on for that as well.
right.
Second thing that I believe needs to get done in healthcare is proactive, periodic checkups. I don't know
Mm,
how we are going to do that, whether we do it through insurance or we do it through monitoring devices. There is enough technology available today to alert that you are having a high blood pressure or high heart rate and whatnot. Question is, how do we inculcate this culture of proactively measuring your health and then getting help? uh,
mm,
what happens today in India is that until I'm on the deathbed, I will
mm,
not go to the doctor,
right.
rather than every year saying, okay, let me just get it checked. So that is one I believe aspect of the culture as well as of the society is something that health tech can help bridge. But I don't know again how to implement that since I have just worked for about a year in health tech.
Yeah.
Not sure how can I really answer that.
No, that's fun. I think that was a very valuable insight there, because obviously a preventive healthcare is what we actually need, right? It's not,
Yeah.
we are always as you said that, when something happens, then only we reach out to, doctors and all. But yeah, we should also focus on preventive healthcare. And obviously, there are schemes, obviously, on similar lines of what UPI was. The government has initiated like ABHA card, where it's a digital card where all your health parameters are aggregated, and based on that, whosoever is kind of, so things are kind of bringing up. But obviously it's we are still at level one maturity if you talk about healthcare. But I think soon, because a lot of investments, a lot of startups that are mushrooming in kind of helping develop these healthcare system. But amazing, I think uh, it's very important to create that ecosystem, and create that a flow of ideas and talent, right, that helps you achieve your said goal, right. And just on that front, Upesh, because you mentioned a lot of things where, while we are discussing on, people needs to do that, they needs to have commitment, they needs to have these skills, soft skills, and all these skills, right. So whenever, so what are your thought processes when you hire folks? Because obviously now you are a leader, and this is a very relevant question for all of our audience, because they would want to understand that while you are hiring talent, right, what are the must haves, or that you kind of want to see in a talent while you are interviewing. Can you just throw some light onto what are these areas where you focus on, and obviously they should learn from these
Absolutely. Absolutely. So see, personally, when I interview, I'm not asking for any hard coding questions, which is generally the trend I've seen. I mean, we ask for or online coding interviews are happening. I don't do that. What I'm looking for in any of the candidates is number one thing is basics of computer science. The fundamentals should be absolutely clear because
right.
after that, it doesn't matter what language framework you're using, you should be able to apply the fundamentals. That is one thing. Second is the intent to deliver. What does that mean? Um, it means that if I ask you a question today, you may or may not know the answer. If you don't know the answer, you should be able to say, I don't know it right now. Let me just go back, find the answer, and I'll come back. But I will get this done. That is the attitude that I'm looking for. And this is the culture that I have tried to build in my team also. When they are interviewing, when they are, let's say, talking to candidates as well, do not just go to the level of coding that these candidates can do. Everybody can learn coding with, let's say, a year or two of training and whatnot, right? What lies beyond? Can you talk to, let's say, a customer directly? It's not just communication. I mean, we know that English is picked up as a language wherein we standardize everything. Can you speak in English, communication skills, etc., etc. That is not the intent.
Yeah.
The language is just a medium, but you should be able to probe the customer or probe the user to bring out the exactly what the user is needing, not the things that they have just expressed. This is something that I want, but that ability, that capability to probe and ask the right and tough questions. That is something that I'm looking for in the candidates. Um, and as I said, when we are writing the job descriptions, a lot of technical words, frameworks are put onto the resume and also onto the job description just to match the ATS software and whatnot. Um, one second. And the idea is not to scare away candidates. The idea is not to scare away anyone. In fact, personally, I don't even look for the exact match on the technologies that we work on. What I'm again looking for, I'll give you an example. For
Mm,
instance, we are looking for, let's say, Spring Boot. Somebody is, there's a job description which requires Spring Boot. The idea is that how I evaluate people is not on Spring Boot. Even if they don't know Spring Boot at all, that is totally fine. What they should know is the underlying protocol, or the technology based on which Spring Boot works. So the questions will be around REST. What is REST? What is HTTP? Because based on that, Spring Boot is working. So that's something that I look for more than technical skills. Intent to deliver is what matters to me, and that is something that I would advise anyone, that build that as a soft skill in yourself. Show that you have full intent to deliver. You have the hunger and fire inside to learn and then do what is asked of you. Don't be choosy, don't be picky on that, I don't know this or I will not do this. Yep.
yeah, fantastic. I think what actually just want to kind of summarize, right? That there are always, it's kind of a the your learning is always a T factor, right? A T shape, right? You first develop a breadth of technologies, or a breadth of things to learn, and then obviously you deep dive into each of those breadth links. It's a T shape, right? And
Exactly.
that's what you try to seek, that whether the candidate has that attitude of first picking those the heads of the T, right? And then obviously the aptitude to go deep down within each of those specific skill sets, right?
Right.
Fantastic, I think.
And in
Hmm,
fact, if I may add a little bit more, if you
please.
have a T type of career or T type of know-how of technologies, it gives you a good tool set to strike conversations at multiple levels. You can talk to your fellow engineers, you can talk to, let's say, outside people, you can talk to your business people, saying that, oh, I did this 2 years back in that sense, can we just port it here? And it's just a conversation striker, and then eventually you can, maybe you are just striking just another idea, um, using that. So idea is to build breadth of knowledge. People may call you jack of all trades, but that is okay. You have the perspective, you have the broad perspective.
Fantastic. I think just we'll stay with this topic only, right? Because obviously this is very important for our audience, right? Uh, so let's try to see the entire talent hiring ecosystem, Upesh, right? Because obviously we have discussed what each candidates require, right? So what, in your opinion, is the biggest challenge that you are facing from the entire talent ecosystem or hiring ecosystem? What are those critical things that you feel that currently it's missing, or maybe could have been much better compared to what is there right now from a recruitment or hiring perspective?
uh See, my take on challenges in terms of hiring is, number one, getting the right profile. And by that, I don't mean just matching the skill set. That would be contradicting my own statements before. When I say matching the right profile is missing the totally fundamental things. So what I would do is I would give a set of initial questions to the recruiter, right? And they might just ask these questions to have a screening test. And these are not coding questions. These are nothing big, but just simple things like, how does regression work? Right? It gives a sense of how do you explain what a stack is? How does memory management work? This one simple question can take a lot of out of the candidate. And if they're not able to answer this one simple question, then obviously this is not the right profile for me.
Mm,
And obviously, once they have passed this kind of initial screening, uh, when I'm interviewing candidates, I'm looking for again the intent to deliver,
mm,
wherein if you ask the question, there are rarely anyone I have seen who has said that, okay, give me a chance, let me come back, and I will send you the answer.
mm,
Very, very rarely. I have met a couple of people who have done that, and actually I hired them. Even if they didn't know, even if they didn't answer all of the questions, that's okay. I mean, it's very difficult to judge somebody in an hour or two. It's very, very difficult. But the idea, you get to see the attitude, you get to see the body language in the interview.
I think I completely agree with you because we are in this space, right? And so we identified this problem, right, where not just technical skills that is required to deliver efficiently, but there are other, and these are not secondary skill set, and these are not absolutely which are like good to haves, or it can't be, it can be, but these are absolutely must have these days, right? So what we have done, Upesh, at Recro is we call it a cow equation: competency, opportunity, and aspiration, right? Where
Mhm.
competency is something your technical skill set, right? How much you technical competent you are to to be fit for that job, right? And the second bit is an aspiration, where you talk about what is your intent to
Right.
deliver, whether you are aspiring to be in that team or not, whether and we kind of check these boxes while we are interviewing this candidate, that yes, he or she have these skill set, not only from a technical perspective but also from an aspirational perspective, on intent to deliver a pursuit. Because if you are able to analyze those things, then only your customers delight is there. Not obviously, for us, not only customers delight, but yes, the candidate also feels empowered when you are sending him or her on a project which is
Okay.
absolutely aligned to their aspiration, right? So that's what, how we have tried to tackle this challenge of a gap into their intent, right? Where they are fit for that role or not, not from a technical perspective, but obviously from a
Right. I mean, traditionally, software engineers, um, they might just be constrained to one thought that I have this LLD, I have this
hmm,
HLD, I will look at this and then we'll get things done. But what if things are not clear even there? Are you even willing to go to, let's say, the end user and
hmm,
ask, is this what you want? Is this what you actually need? That is what I mean by intent to deliver. You should be willing to go any extra length beyond what is written by business analysts or by the product manager and challenge them. Is this something that my user really wants? Because I'm building for the user, not for the product manager. So
right.
that's something that I of course look for in the candidates. As a software.
Perfect. I think that aptly kind of summarizes the agenda of these conversations, Upesh, because going above and beyond your core, core
Yeah,
ask is something that that makes you stand out of the crowd of 100 people who have come for interview, or who are delivering the project, right? And that's why I think our conversation on this platform is we are trying to get those insights from you, and hence we have aptly named this podcast as Beyond Code, because obviously code is something that we generally typically associate with tech people, right? But there is something that is absolutely beyond the realms of coding and the
yeah,
tech stuff that makes that person the leader, or the person who which is there right now in
yeah.
front of our, and absolutely amazing. I think we have certain questions, Upesh, from our audience. Let me take a couple of them. Yeah, a very interesting question. I think it comes from your maybe a US India discussion, that how is tech different in US and India? Uh, if given a chance, what you would choose over other, and why? So, kind of putting you in spot, but yeah, let's try to answer
Got
that.
it. Is it like using the technology, building it, or what is it that we're talking about? If I
Let's use using it, because that will give a very
got it.
consumer perspective of tech.
Yeah. So see, I'm a big fan of scale,
Mm,
and we know India is much bigger in scale if we talk about in terms of number of users
mm,
compared to the Western world.
mm.
The entire population of US would be 300 million, approximately that. And
Yeah.
out of that, some people might be using your application. Take Spotify, for example, right? And of course, I'm talking about just one particular region.
Mm,
Whereas if you compare it to, let's say, locally grown apps, something like Savan,
mm,
that would be played, at a much larger scale in India. And of course, there might be technical challenges here and there,
mm,
but essentially, Indian technology is actually is proving that is worthy of being adopted in the world. And I would any day choose the tech built in India for sure.
Yeah, I think just yesterday I was reading an interesting, I think, tweet from Kunal Shah that on revenues, right? Meta revenue in India and US, right? Obviously, uh, the number of users in India, I think, double compared to what it is there in US. But at the same time, the revenues, right? The revenues are not even half compared to what India's revenue is, half of what US revenues, right? So we have, I think, we have solved a scale problem, and whatever we will do, we will be attacking that problem from a scale perspective. But obviously, that money will eventually come in, right? It's not a kind of winner takes it all market where one guy is ruling the roost, right?
Yeah, and the other aspect of this question is one is scale, which is primarily technical,
Mhm.
but the other part which I don't like about Indian software is the user experience. Look at
Mhm.
and again, I have nothing against the names that I will put in here,
Mhm.
but just compare these websites of, let's say, ICICI Bank versus, I don't know, Bank of
Yeah,
America,
legacy. Yeah.
right? And then that's a big difference, but it has nothing to do with tech. It has everything to do with how do we research the
Mm.
UX, how do we present it on the website, because technology is still the same behind it.
Correct, correct. Fantastic. I think let's take another question. We are already 50 minutes into the conversation. What is the major loophole in health tech you find as a director of engineering at Senior? Very relevant question. I think
Mm, I don't know how to answer that question.
so let's not talk it talk in a sense of loophole, right? Let's see what are the avenues of opportunity, right? In specifically in healthcare, and obviously Zinier is not very, it's a field organization, asset management company. It manages all your on-field things, right?
Right.
So from that perspective, where do you see there are other opportunities of maybe in any other sector if you want to take that from, but if you can see from health tech perspective, what are the opportunities that that we see in future might play a larger role in amplifying this sector's share.
See, as I said earlier, delivering software or delivering technology to enable people in the remote parts of the country, that is something important, because see, concentrated populations in city tier 1 cities,
Hmm.
that's anyways that is being done. And with the advances in the telecom sector, of course, we have bandwidth everywhere, we have network everywhere, almost everywhere. So idea is to be able to build that technology, is bring it to the masses in the smaller setups, and if possible do it in an offline online manner,
Hmm.
where network is patchy, sometimes you're not able to make payments. That's where I think if there is an optimization opportunity, use that and enable the lives of those people who are struggling with, let's say, smaller or weaker network. That's, I think, is an opportunity. And of course, as our prime minister also said in the Independence Day speech, corruption is one thing that needs to get out, and use of technology is something that we can use to weed out that.
Right. So you are suggesting the phygital world, like the physical plus digital world, needs to
Exactly.
kind of amalgamate in a certain sector of our societies where
Yeah.
the
See,
opportunities lie.
a lot of big problems that we have. One of them is backlog of legal cases, and
Absolutely.
many of them are based on real estate. So if there is something that can be done to get away with the disputes based on technology, let's say using the technology, then why not?
Mm.
Free up the courts and whatnot. So there are real problems here in India, and of course, technology is. It doesn't matter what sector it is in, and that's the reason I
Mm.
have always been. I have
Mm.
never been a proponent of saying, okay, let me get stuck to this one sector.
Mm.
So there is a lot of opportunity out there. It's just a matter of getting connected to the right people.
Amazing. I think I'm really loving this conversation. I think I really want to last really long, but obviously, Upesh, we have some time constraint, and obviously we understand your schedule as well. So just want to kind of thank you, right? Thank you so much for taking this time out, and obviously for having this heart to heart conversation, because I hope our audience who have tuned in us, and obviously who will be listening to us on our other platforms, they are taking a lot of insights out of Upesh's journey, not only as a tech leader but also as a person who has seen a lot of lot of cultures, who has seen a lot of changes, who has seen bubble burst, dot-com bubble, who has seen global recession, who has seen growth, who has seen you know uh, a startup ecosystem evolving in India. So a lot of insights that needs that's can be taken out of this conversation. And again, thank you so much for taking this time, Upesh. Any parting thoughts, Upesh, for this?
Mitesh, thank you very much for having me. And actually, I loved the conversation. To be honest, like I said, I don't generally get into
Yeah.
these kind of sessions, but I really, really loved it. And I wish we could do this in person physically. But yeah, again, thanks a lot for having me. And obviously, anytime again, if you want me to get on, of course I will.
Certainly, I think for our audience also, I think the next time we will meet, obviously it will be in person, Upesh. I think we are planning to open up, a full-fledged setup for these kind of conversation in person. And obviously, the next time we'll be having this conversation, I promise it will be a physical one, and not a digital one. And for our audience also, I think thank you so much for tuning in. Hope you had a good time while you were having listening to Upesh's and his journey. Thank you so much for tuning, and may you have a very good day ahead. Thank you, guys. Thank you.